Like, I just feel like, I have CPTSD with borderline features. Like, I do believe that I have borderline features, and those are things that need to be worked on. Now, again, like, I am willing to have play therapy or primal therapy. I'm unwilling to have any therapy that makes me feel like I'm losing my child, my ability, my opportunity to be nurtured by somebody else. I'm willing to do that. I want to be nurtured. I want to be loved. I want to. Why did it darken? I want my time to matter. I don't want a gaping hole in my heart for the rest of my life. And finally, you could tell my eyes are hazel, kind of because you're being blocked by a chair here, so the lighting can't hit it. Um, but yeah, like, um, I don't believe that I have a personality disorder, even though I come pretty close to having borderline personality. But where I am failing to see it in myself, is that and this is my own reasoning, it's not anything I read, but I just really feel like a borderline would be globalizing their splitting, whereas I am able to see people as simultaneously good and bad. I feel like my views on Aster and Seema, even though they banned me and it was unfair with everything, with like how people had been enabled to do things, and how some people who had sexually harassed users and criminal contact boy, like getting the FBI involved were unbanned, like I'm still able to see them, simultaneously good and bad. Like I personally feel that a borderline would be unable to do that and amid their emotions, whereas I've never directed my frustration at them, like borderline and narcissist. They split on people, like a narcissist would like throw somebody away, like when they don't serve them any longer, like, or when they like go against their own agenda. And then the borderline, would be like splitting and like viewing them as like evil and demonizing them. Whereas like I did not do that. So yeah, like I have a lot of borderline traits, more than is normal for somebody with CPTSD by themselves. And I'm wondering where autism plays the role in this. Because, I have autism. I've been diagnosed since only 8 years old. Um, and, I feel like my autism should be making me fixated. Because a part of autism is rigid thinking. So my autism might be making me too fixated on having that. And it's like a correlated thing that's not quite expressed at the borderline personality pathological level. But the autism is making me fixated on receiving that. And again, my executive functioning and developmental age are younger than my chronological ages. So there's also that factor as well. You have to look at where this is, with my developmental level. Regional center put my developmental level at 84. That has nothing to do with IQ. It's just like your developmental level. Now, I'd have to ask my regional center worker, Rocio, like what it means. But what I can tell you is that I'm chronologically younger than my age in my development. And this had been put in my IEP report growing up as well. So that is another really tough thing with diagnosing somebody with autism, like personality related things. You have to look at their developmental level, because some things may be typical for a certain development. If somebody is developmentally a teenager, like a lot of like borderline behaviors or other personality ones, even narcissistic ones, can be less pathological in somebody who is a teenager, a neurotypical teenager. If somebody is, developing slower and they're stuck in that, then you have that factor to go in as well, So this is where I'm saying that it gets really, really hard. And childhood trauma and abuse are really lacking study in complex PTSD with autism. So the personality disorder I come closest to having is definitely borderline. I would say that I come closest to borderline, schizotypal borderline, which is interesting because when Rose had me do that result, that's what I scored closest to, with the affective lability and the oddness coming in there. So that's what I used to, accept myself when I accepted my borderline diagnosis. I called myself a schizotypal borderline. Narcissism, ow, my freaking nose. Oh, it hurts. Narcissism, I might have some traits of it, but I don't believe that I have narcissism because I'm not focused on trying to gain admiration and attention. No, I want empathy and love for myself, but I'm not trying to I don't feel entitled to having admiration. Even me having stayed in a place where I was just being shat on and disliked, a narcissist would have left that place because it would have made them split on people and they would not want to deal with that criticism, you know. Whereas I was having emotional ability and losing myself over it, which is closer to borderline. But again, this is why I really don't see myself quite having borderline personality. And a variable you have to isolate, again, that psychology is unaccounting for now, is my developmental age. Because developmentally, socially, emotionally, I am a teenager. Because of my autism developmental delays, because of missed social experiences, and because of having, been put up with intellectual disabilities, close to the beginning of my adulthood, not long ago, so those things are all influencing me in my childhood trauma. So you have to look at that component as well, which I am unsure of how psychologists do that.